Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today it is the weekly mailbag where I answer your questions on the black and gold as we prepare for the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine coming up here in Indianapolis. Our team here at Chat Sports is going to be in Indianapolis all week long to get you guys extensive coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers from Indianapolis. We'll have press conferences from both GM Omar Khan and head coach Mike McCarthy, as well as the latest rumors. It's a big rumors week with everybody in the NFL consolidated in one spot. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button for our extensive Combine coverage that we're going to be having here on the channel over the next week or so. And, of course, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to join the most interactive Steelers fan community anywhere here on YouTube. We will continue to get you guys the daily community posts and the daily videos and all that great stuff for you guys to interact with here on the channel. All right, so $5 from Schuleberg says, would it be better to try and get 2027 draft capital for TJ Watt in a trade? I feel like that class is way better and you might get more value. I would be open to it for sure. If you're going to trade TJ Watt, if you're going to trade Nick Herbig, one of these edge rushers, and it does seem like, especially if Herbig is going to demand a trade out, if he's not going to get an extension and a full-time starting spot here in Pittsburgh, you're going to have to make a tough decision. And, you already have 12 picks this year, right? So it could make sense to try and get more draft capital for 2027 when you might be drafting a quarterback and you might want to load up on draft capital for that draft class. Certainly makes a lot of sense there. So if the team is right and is willing to give me the right compensation in 2027 for TJ Watt, that is definitely something that I would consider. $2 from CL Rose, who says, do you think Mike T will attend the 2026 NFL draft? You never know, but it kind of seems like Tomlin's kind of cool, just like living a private life, and he kind of hates the media, honestly, and he just doesn't really fit his lifestyle. So maybe he goes on McAfee or something, or something a little bit more laid back. But I don't really expect to see a whole lot of Mike Tomlin over the next calendar year in terms of media appearances. $2 from Bernard says, Jack, do you still think A-Rod is coming back? Maybe he's decided by the time this comes out. This is supposed to be coming out on Sunday, just so you guys know we're filming this on Thursday. But if Rodgers, I think at this point as I sit here today, Rodgers is more likely to come back than not. The reason for that is Tom Pelissero's report that Rodgers has apparently had, quote-unquote, several conversations with Mike McCarthy. Now, I could see him calling up Mike McCarthy one time to congratulate him on getting the Steelers job, but that's just a one-time call sort of situation. I feel like if you're having multiple conversations with the Steelers head coach, like what are you talking about? Like, you're not talking about where you get your hair cut, during the week. Like, you're talking about what receivers are you planning on bringing in? What's your vision for the offense? How would I fit into that vision? And, you start having some of those conversations. And it reminds me a lot when we heard Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers were having multiple conversations behind the scenes during the Rodgers situation last year, right? It just feels like a very similar situation to me. It seems like the players want Rodgers back. Apparently Rodgers' body felt pretty darn good at the end of the season this past year. And it sounds like he still really loves playing football. And McCarthy did bring in a lot of his friends on the coaching staff. And I'm sure he'd like to play with those people, in the same building for one more year before he retires. So if I had to guess right now, I do think Aaron Rodgers comes back for another year, but certainly retirement is still on the table because it's Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think anybody knows for sure what he's thinking at this point. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Who should be Pittsburgh's QB1 in 2026? Should it be Aaron Rodgers? Should it be Malik Willis? Should it be Geno Smith? Should it be Ty Simpson? Will Howard? Let me know what you guys' pick is down there in the comments section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. While I tell you about today's sponsor, let me know your answer to today's pin question down there in the comments. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks right now and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting this basketball season. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all of your favorite sports, anything from basketball to baseball, which is starting up soon, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, and even NASCAR and esports. A new feature from Prize Picks that I love is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you can now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. $5 from Yami. It says, do you believe the Steelers' first-round pick will be depending on Aaron Rodgers returning? If not, where do you think they go position-wise? It's a good question, and I think it at least a little bit is dependent on if Rodgers comes back, because obviously if he's coming back, then I think that the urgency to get a quarterback early in the draft goes down. Okay, now maybe the Steelers just fall in love with Ty Simpson out of Alabama anyway, and they go out and draft him round 1, even if Rodgers comes back. That's a possibility, because Simpson actually fits Mike McCarthy pretty well. He's got a super fast processor. He's played in an NFL-style offense before at Alabama, and a lot of these college kids don't run pro-style offenses nowadays, and they take a couple years to adjust. Ty Simpson's already had a year playing in a pro-style offense. He's got some pretty darn good arm talent. He can, layer that football over the middle of the field. He's got some athleticism to him as well. He just fits Mike McCarthy, man. So it wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up being his guy of the future. But obviously, if Rodgers retires, then I think that probably kickstarts that movement even more. If Rodgers retires and, they can't get a guy like, say, Malik Willis in free agency or Kyler Murray in the trade market, like they might be bringing in a veteran like Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins, and those guys are not long-term options. So they're going to have to look for that long-term option. Do they really believe in Will Howard so much where they're going to make him the long-term future without any competition? I don't know about that. So I would say if Rodgers retires, the chances of Ty Simpson going round 1 go up. And if Rodgers comes back, Ty Simpson going to Pittsburgh in round 1 go down. But personally, I'm kind of hoping they take a receiver to pair with Rodgers if he returns to try to get the most out of the then 43-year-old QB. Kevin Reed with a question here says, if Gainwell doesn't come back, do you think KJ gets a chance? It's certainly a possibility, right? High draft pick, third-round draft pick from last year, highly touted out of Iowa. Hopefully he's learned a thing or two from Eddie Faulkner, the previous running backs coach. Hopefully he picks up some new things from Ramon Chinyong here, the new running backs coach here in Pittsburgh. And, I'm rooting for KJ. I really am. I really liked him coming out of Iowa. It's just he wasn't a good enough pass protector, wasn't a good enough pass catcher. And also, Kenny Gainwell had an awesome season, right? I think KJ would have played a lot more if Kenneth Gainwell wasn't as good as he was last season. So we'll see what their plan is there. But they could certainly go out in free agency or the draft to get more running back help as well. So my guess is if Gainwell doesn't come back, Kaleb Johnson is probably, that second piece alongside Jaylen Warren heading into the year. But I guess we'll just have to see on that. Now, before we get to the rest of your questions here this week, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, the real ones know clicking that thumbs up icon is the fastest and easiest way to help us out here on Steelers Talk. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy our content as a Steelers fan and that they should push it and recommend it to other Steelers fans across planet Earth. So if you guys want to help us out, get our videos in front of more audiences, click that thumbs up icon and help us out today. Eugene Payne, my man, says TJ will have a better year this season, believe it or not. I hope he does. Like, if he's back next year, and let's say they trade Nick Herbig this offseason, they choose TJ Watt over Nick Herbig, I hope TJ Watt wins Defensive Player of the Year. I hope that he's worth every penny of the contract that he currently has left, because it's like $42 million cap hit. Then he's got, multiple more years of really high quarterback level cap hits, right? So I hope he's worth every penny of that, man, because if he's worth every penny of that, that means he's playing at a Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons level. And obviously that means good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe, with them bringing in Patrick Graham, he can unlock, maybe a second wind in TJ Watt's career, and he can play awesome in this defense. And certainly a possibility. TJ's still a really good player. And if they end up keeping him, obviously I'll be cheering for him, and I still love him as a player. I mean, we've got wall art of him up here in the studio, so certainly not anti-TJ Watt by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly hope he can be more productive next year than he was this year. $5 from Interstellar Reaper says, Jack, you can't cut Mason Rudolph. I remember when he saved Christmas with Pickens. Yeah, man, I'm on record saying Mason Rudolph's a Steelers legend for life, but you can't attach sentimental value to decisions to build your team around unless you want to suck, plain and simply, and you want to overpay players that aren't fits for your team, stuff like that. And even if Rodgers comes back, I think it makes more sense to have multiple younger quarterback options to develop behind him than to keep Rudolph, because let's face it, man. Like, if Aaron Rodgers gets injured next year, Mason Rudolph is not winning you a Super Bowl. Plain and simply, your season's over regardless if Aaron Rodgers is out for the year. So I just don't really see the value in keeping Rudolph, if I'm being honest. I would rather bring in somebody that's younger to be your backup that could maybe be a long-term solution at the quarterback position. Maybe somebody like Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Trey Lance, one of these guys that, kind of flamed out somewhere else, but can maybe have some success here in Pittsburgh under Mike McCarthy. $10 from Trump versus, hey, Jack, how do you trade TJ Watt considering his record and what he has done for the Steelers? I don't want to lose Nick Herbig, but I don't want to give up Watt either. I don't want to give up any of them, man. Like, I'm on record saying that, having that three-headed monster at outside linebacker has been a big-time advantage for the Pittsburgh Steelers these last several years. They've had the best edge rusher trio in the game, but plain and simply, Nick Herbig is way too good to be getting 15 snaps a game. I don't blame him at all for wanting to be a full-time starter. I don't blame him for wanting to get paid this offseason. So, if I have to make a tough choice as to who I'm going to trade, if I'm just looking at it objectively, I'm going to go with the guy that's the oldest, the most expensive by far against the cap, and would save me the most money by trading, and then also the least productive last year. Like, TJ Watt was less productive by the numbers than Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig in terms of his pure pass rushing stats. And I know people are going to be like, oh, but he got double teams, all that stuff. But you're paying him $42 million against the cap to beat those double teams. Like, that's what Myles Garrett does. That's what Micah Parsons does. That's why they get paid as much as they do, is because they don't let double teams stop them. All right. And TJ Watt lets double teams stop him now. And that didn't used to be the case. But listen, man, that's just what happens when you get older as a speed rusher. And I'm not trying to say TJ Watt's a bad player. He's still a very good player. And when he gets one-on-one opportunities, he's still dominant. And he's still a very good run defender and all those different things. It's just he's slowing down. And I think that's a reality that we have to come to grips with. And we have to, if it comes down to keeping a 31-year-old player that's super expensive and is on the decline versus retaining a 24-year-old up-and-coming edge rusher and Nick Herbig, I'm taking the up-and-coming guy every chance that I get, no matter how much sentimental value I have for TJ Watt at this point. So if you had to pick one to trade this offseason, who are you picking? Type TJ if you want to trade TJ Watt, type AH for Alex Highsmith, or NH for Nick Herbig. Personally, I think the right decision is to trade TJ. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think the most likely person that they would trade in real life is Nick Herbig. And honestly, I think that's a pretty realistic possibility at this point. All right, well, that's going to be it for this week's mailbag, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end with me here this week. Make sure you guys join us every Thursday where we film these mailbags, where you guys can have your voice heard here on Steelers Talk. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.